Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Stuhyamano jana ebhir Mayaya nana rupaya Vimohitatma bhir nana Darshanena cha drishyate. He said, you're taking 9 to 11. I thought he meant like I was taking the kirtan shift from 9 to 11. But then he clarified that I'm taking verses 9, 10, and 11. This is verse 10, but I'm actually supposed to start at verse 9. And so I don't know if I should. I think I just have to go back. They wrote down verse 10, perhaps because it has a purport attached to it. But I should actually start with verse 9 because we're going through the Bhagavatam, purport or no purport. So I'm just going to go back and we'll read verse 9 and we'll go through the word by word on that in the translation and we'll move forward just because I'm rolling with the punches as they come. And so, Sargam Prajesha Rupena Dashun Hanyat Swarat Vapuhu Kala Rupena Sarvesham Abhavaya Pritta Gunaha. And so you guys we'll go through the word by word. Sargam, creation of progeny. Praja Isha Rupena, in the form of the Prajapati Marichi. Dasyun, thieves and rogues. Hanyat, kills. Swarat Vapuhu, in the form of the king. Kala Rupena, in the form of time. Sarve Sham, of everything. Abhavaya, for the annihilation. Pritak, different. Gunaha, possessing qualities. So here's the translation of verse 9, the verse just preceding this verse that we'll discuss in a minute, and then after that we'll discuss verse 11. Translation: in the form of Prajapati Marichi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates progeny. Becoming the king, he kills the thieves and rogues. And in the form of time, that same Supreme Personality, he annihilates everything. All the different qualities of the material existence should be understood to be qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm just going to read it one more time. In the form of Prajapati Marichi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates progeny. Do we normally do that? I'm just going to read it through one more time. In the form of Prajapati Marichi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates progeny. Becoming the king, he, the Personality of Godhead, kills the thieves and rogues. And in the form of time, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he annihilates everything. All the different qualities of material existence should be understood to be qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. Just because I'm just getting here to Vrindavan, and my mind works in a particular way, I'm just going to take 5 or 10 minutes to get us to the 8th canto and the 14th chapter. The first 2 cantos of the Bhagavatam are largely an introduction of important things that we need to know to be able to make sense of the entire text. We're introduced to all the major players, Krishna's positions articulated. We get some instructions how to, through a natural theology, arrive at Krishna by looking at the universe. And we're also given a very important tool for making sense out of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is about 14,000 verses. It's normally glorified as having 18,000 verses, but I have on the authority of Radha Govinda Maharaj that he's tried 100 different ways, and he's never gotten more than 13,800 verses out of the Bhagavatam. He's such an illustrious Bhagavatam scholar. Some of the verses must have slipped through the cracks. I'd also like to mention that Radha Raman Maharaj is here, the great pure Vaishnava. I'm embarrassed sitting above you. I won't make further mention of that, but I'm very, very happy to see you, Maharaj. I've known Maharaj since I was a boy, since I was a young child. He's been my well-wisher, of course. Great Vaishnavas like Panchagoda who are here as well, so many others. I'm ashamed to be sitting in front of you, but such as it is, I'm here and I'm speaking. So we get a really important tool for understanding the Bhagavatam. We're told the Bhagavatam has 10 subject matters. And then we have 10 more cantos. It's mentioned just at the end of the 2nd canto, and then there's 10 more cantos, 3 through 12, and they match up really nicely with this legend. Like when you have a map, you get legend, you can better understand the map. And so this legend starts with Sarga, and Visarga, and anyway, it goes on, Stanam and Poshana, Uttaya, Manvantar, Ishanukata. We get all these tools, ideas about what each canto is about. Now, according to Jiva Goswami, each canto has all 10 subjects, and certainly he's correct. But Prabhupada liked this approach where we noticed that each of these subsequent cantos, starting with 3, roughly matched up to one of these subjects. He makes mention of this in the beginning of the 6th canto, where he says Poshana is discussed in the 6th canto. So, in the 3rd canto, we discuss Sarga, which is a pretty standard thing. When you have a philosophy, a traditional philosophy has 4 parts. The first one is cosmology. You explain where everything came from. And so in the 3rd canto, we explain the creation of the universe. And in that explanation, Manu comes up. Manu comes up. He's a real central figure. He's a major player in the creation of the universe, and he creates progeny. And Manu, Swayambhu Manu, has 5 children. What is it? Devahuti Akuti, Prasuti, Uttanpad, and Priyavrat. Dap up. Dap up. Devahuti, from Devahuti you get Kapila. And then Akuti, Akuti's mentioned with Yagya in the 4th canto, and again in the 8th canto she comes up. Prasuti's where you get the whole Daksha Yagya from. And then Uttanpad, you get Dhruva and Vena and so many other people. Priyavrat from Uttanpad. And then you, Uttanpad, you get, Prithu. And then Priyavrat, who gives you Agnidra and Bharat and Jad Bharat and Shabdev. So many personalities come from Priyavrat's dynasty. The 3rd and 4th canto are that conversation. The 5th canto rolls around, and we finish up with Priyavrat through Jad Bharat, and then Stanam. It comes up because Priyavrat is involved in the universal management, and so the situation of the planets is described. And then the unfortunate results of impiety are discussed. And the hearer of the Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj, becomes scared, and he asks, how do we avoid unfortunate circumstances, from impiety, and then the 6th canto starts. And Ajamil comes, and so many stories come. The Prachetas show up, and Indra, and Chitraketu, becoming Vritrasur, and the Lord protects everybody from all sides, the whole 6th canto. Poshan, he's nurturing them, looking after them. And the most prominent of those stories is the story of Ajamil. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj becomes a little Parikshit Maharaj becomes a little bewildered, and he asks, why is the Lord favoring one person, favoring Indra, punishing Vritrasur? And in explaining that, the story of Narasimha comes up, and then that wraps up the 7th canto. And all these things have been discussed, and then the 8th canto begins. And the 8th canto begins, and Parikshit Maharaj says, you've talked about Swayambhuv Manu and all of his descendants. He's going all the way back to the 3rd canto. Swayambhuv Manu comes up, and everything is stemming from that. Even Varahadev in the 3rd canto comes up, because how could Swayambhuv Manu create when the world fell out of its orbit? So you have to explain how it was put back in his orbit, and he could continue creation. So the entire Bhagavatam, from the 3rd canto all the way up through the 8th, is a very intricate, back and forth, nuanced discussion of Swayambhuv Manu and his progeny and his genealogy. And that gets us all the way to the 8th canto. And the 8th canto is about Manvantar. It's about the different Manus and the different periods where the Manus operate, these great kings, these great personalities, and what happens. And so we've heard about Swayambhuv Manu, and now we want to hear about the rest of the Manus. And that's the 8th canto. And following its traditional, I don't know, you could say the Bhagavatam's traditional structure. What's really going on in the Bhagavatam is we have an opportunity to hear about the lives of great devotees and how Krishna operates within their lives in various ways. And we also have an opportunity to hear their prayers. And so the 8th canto starts off with some beautiful prayers of Swayambhuv Manu and Shatarupa, his good wife. And then we discuss the previous Manus, and we discuss the subsequent Manus, and some important events like Samudra Mantana, the churning of the ocean, and Gajendra Moksha, the liberation of Gajendra. The Lord is interacting in the lives of so many devotees at all times, but some of them are particularly archetypal, and they're particularly foundational, and those ones are mentioned in the Bhagavatam. And all the devotees are praying at all times. There's different types of prayers. There's prarthana, you pray for something. There's vandana, where you recite prayers of other personalities. Siddhalalasa, you pray for perfection. Dainya Bodhika, you tell the Lord about your fallen condition and pray for mercy. Like this, there's different types of prayers. And so we get the prayers of these great personalities. That happens in the 8th canto. Gajendra prays. And we wind up here. And now we're in the 14th chapter, which I believe is the shortest chapter in the entire Bhagavatam. It has 11 verses. And so it's the shortest chapter in the whole. I didn't go through all 335 chapters of Bhagavatam to be sure, but I'm pretty sure. Somebody can correct me. There must be somebody listening. If I'm wrong, they can correct me. But with 11 verses, I haven't seen a shorter chapter. Have you, Maharaj? Maharaj isn't sure either, but it's a pretty short chapter. And so we've got the 14th chapter of the 8th canto. And I just wanted to kind of get us there. So now we're there. And the fact that there isn't a long purport allows me to think about the Bhagavatam in the way I normally do. So we start out. And Parikshit Maharaj asks to understand about the Manus, and Yasmin Karmani Ye Yena Niyuktas Tat Vadasvame. You please tell me what Vadasmame, you please explain to me, you please describe to me. Yena niyukta. By who are they engaged? By who are they appointed? And so in his question, he's asking about the Manus. They're doing all this work, these Manus, these great kings, they're operating in this world, but on whose order? On whose order are they operating? He asks this question. And Shukadeva Goswami begins to speak. And he speaks, Sarve Purusha Shashana. He says that all these people, they're all under the rule of Purusha. Purusha Shashana. Shashana is from Shash. It's where you get the word Shastra from. Shastra is the body of text that rule people. This is a very important thing. We have the Constitution in the U.S. I'm assuming India also has a Constitution. I don't know the Indian Constitution. I do know the U.S. Constitution. And in the beginning of the Constitution, we say, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, such as the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have a book, we have a text, we have a document. The document is the Constitution. It introduces certain ideas. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That's saying that these truths are axiomatic. It's a fancy way of saying we're not going to give any further evidence, we're just simply going to state them. It's self-evident, it's incorrigible. Just like cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. It's self-evident, what? That all men are created equal. We're not going to argue for it, we're not going to provide evidence, we're just telling you that. That's our starting point. All men are equal, and they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, such as the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life and liberty, life and freedom, and then you can pursue happiness. And the pursuit of happiness comes last, because if in your pursuit of happiness you contradict or go against the life and liberty of others, then we take away your freedom. Sometimes, even in certain states, we take away your life. We have capital punishment in the U.S., we kill people. If they commit a serious enough crime, we put you to death in many of our states. And so we will take away somebody's life and liberty if in their pursuit of happiness they compromise the inalienable rights of life and liberty of other people. Every state law, every city law in the U.S. has to follow our major law, our federal law, which is the Constitution. We have a Shastra. In the 16th chapter of the Gita, Krishna speaks about this. People were ashastra. They don't follow Shastra. And it's kind of like the beginning of the end, because then you just follow your own whims. Anyway, so these people are Purusha Shashana. The Manus, they're operating under some higher jurisdiction, some higher law. If you think about it, when, if like you get stopped by the police for driving too fast in the U.S., why are they stopping you? They're stopping you because the city ordinances allow them to. The city ordinances they're in line with the state ordinances, which are in line with federal ordinances, which are in line with the Constitution. And what's the authority of the Constitution? That there's a Creator, and that Creator gave people certain rights, and our book is protecting those rights. In this way, ultimately, the authority that a police officer has in the U.S., and I'm assuming in India as well, can ultimately get abstracted back to because he's representing God. And that's stated here. All these Manus, all these kings, they're Purusha Shashana. They're in the control of the Purusha. Purusha, of course, is a fascinating word. If you look at an Indian toilet and they want to say Purusha, Purush, it means it's a men's toilet. If you look on a toilet, it says Purush, it means it's a male toilet, and then Stri is for women, female toilet. Right? So Purush means male. It also means human. Purush could also be used for men and women, just like we use the word mankind to refer to men and women. And Purush, like in the Purusha Sukta, can also be God. Here the word Purusha is used to indicate God. So how are these people? By whose authority? They're under the authority of Purusha, of God. And then he says, Parikshit Maharaj says, he's already describes many of the Purushas, such as Yajna. And these Manus, they're Nayanti Abhi Prachodita, being directed by these incarnations, they're doing their duties. And he goes on, he explains something that, neglecting the vision of the great rishis, adharma begins to reign, and then it becomes the duty of the manus to reestablish dharma in their own time. Harina udita, by the direction of Hari. Harina, by Hari udita, by his direction. By his direction, the manus are operating. This point is made over and over and over again in this chapter. All right, and then we get this. They really messed with me when they gave me 9 through 11, and there's a reason. I'm going to explain it now. Text 8 says, text 9 just says, literally text 9 says, with the form of the Prajeshas, with the form of the Prajapatis, creation, with the form of the king killing the Dasyus, with the form of time annihilating everything. But it doesn't tell you who's doing that with that form. It just says with this, with this, with this. So you have to, it's referring to an antecedent, to something that came before. And so they should have done 8 and 9 together because they were designed to go together. It didn't work out that way. There was a purport to 8 but none to 9, so it's the way it works. So the verse 9, my first verse, says, with the form of the Prajapatis, creation, with the form of the king killing the Dasyus, with the form of time destroying everything. But it makes you wonder who's doing it with that form, right? What's doing it with that form? And that's explained in text 8. And so in text 8 it says, Hari brute jnana cha anuyugam siddha drik. Hari, in the form of siddhas, explains jnanam according to the yugas. He explains knowledge according to the yugas. The Lord, in the form of great devotees, perfected beings. This requires an explanation. So I'm just going to give one because I'm doing the whole chapter. I've done the third canto to the 8th canto, and now I'm doing the whole chapter. We'll get through it. I won't go past 9 o'clock. I'm moving at a good clip. I should probably get out my phone so I can double check my time. I'm doing okay. We're doing all right. If you believe in God in some kind of substantive way, if you have a conception of God, omniscient, omnibenevolent, omnipotent, you have a Krishna conception of God, you have a Jesus conception of God, that conception of divinity is actually somebody else's conception of divinity, and it was given to you by a human being. There is no Jesus separate from his apostles. There is no Allah separate from Muhammad. There is no Krishna separate from the lineage that reveals him. There's no secular record of Krishna that we build our faith on. Even the Gita, the words of Krishna, their words were written down. They were spoken. Who heard them? Sanjay heard them. How was it? Vyas Prasada, by Vyasa's mercy. How did all of us become devotees? We heard from somebody. Somebody shared with us the good news. The word gospel means good news. Somebody shared with us some idea, a beautiful idea. We became attracted to that idea. Really, we owe our conception of God to the lineage, to the personalities that gave it to us. If you read a book, then it was the person who wrote down the book. But generally speaking, a book's not enough. You hear from people. Your faith in God, your conception of divinity, is actually the property of your gurus. Jive sakshat nahi tata chaitya rupe. The jiva, the soul, isn't able to experience God in the heart. So what happens? Hoy Krishna Swarup Mahanta Swarupe. Krishna manifests in the form of the Vaishnava, the Mahant, the great devotee. To solve this problem, the Lord within manifests to us in the words of our teachers. This is Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's our understanding of Guru. We can't hear from within, and so Krishna manifests as a Vaishnava and speaks to us from without. He's Chaitanya Das. He's a servant of Chaitanya, but he's also Krishna Prakash because he's speaking on behalf of Krishna. Krishna's speaking through him. There's this mystical experience where our gurus, they manifest Krishna in our life. So this verse is very beautiful. It says that Hari takes the form of great personalities and he speaks. Brute, he speaks. Jnanam, Anuyugam. He speaks knowledge according to the yugas. You can say, I hear from God directly, and that's fine. We don't dispute that. But then you're the Siddha. You're directly inspired by Krishna. If anybody believes you, you just start a religion. There's no way to get around this. Therefore, Gadaira Gaur. It's Gadadhar's Gaur. Sanatana Gaur. It's Sanatana Goswami's Gaur. It's Rupa Goswami's Chaitanya. We owe our conception of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also to the 6 Goswamis. They belong to him. We inherit our conception from them. And when we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then we feel more grateful. Because through their instructions, we're able to experience something. Anyway, Rishi Rupa Dhara Karma, in the form of rishis. He teaches karma, yogam, yogesha rupadrik, and in the form of the yogeshas, the masters of yoga, he teaches yoga. So what's happening in the manvantars throughout creation is the Lord is manifesting in these different forms and he's getting things done. And then our verse today comes. Prajesha Rupena. With that form of the Prajeshas, that same Lord, Hari, he creates. Swarat Vapu, in the form of Swarat. In the form of, Swarat means self-ruled. It means like somebody who's independent. It comes from the Sanskrit dhatu Raj, which is where you get the word Raja from, the noun Raja from, the king from. Swarat, Samrat, the king, the emperor. Swarat, even in modern Hindi, means like someone who's self-employed. And so in the form of the king, he's killing the rogues. This word dasyu is an interesting word. I can't avoid talking about it a little bit. Dasyu is where we get the word das from. So the Aryans, this goes back to the Rig Veda, the Aryans killed the Dasyus. If you read the Rig Veda, which none of us do, but I have. If you read the Rig Veda, there's a battle going on between the Aryans and the Dasyus. The Aryans are noble. When Arjuna doesn't want to fight, Krishna calls him Anarya Jushtam. Your words are Anarya Jushtam. They're fitting someone who's Anarya. Who's Anarya? The Dasyus are. Who are the Dasyus? They're the people that had different bodily features than the Aryans, led by Indra. They lived in Puras. They lived in cities. Indra was Purandara. He was the destroyer of cities. That's the origin of the term Purandara. Of course, Purandara means chief now, so it's Vrindavana Purandara. Krishna's Vrindavana Purandara. Purandara was originally named for Indra, who destroyed cities. The cities of the Dasyas were called Puras. And so we co-opted that. We took it on our own. And they were the Dasyus. They were not quite enslaved, but they became indentured servants of the Aryans. And this term was used in a negative way. The Dasyus were ayagya. They didn't do yagya. Akratu. They didn't do rites. Anarya. They weren't noble. So that word dasyu means thieves and rogues, but we co-opted it. We co-opted it. Just like I didn't know if there was going to be a book here, so I brought my own Bhagavatam. And I thought in my mind, anyway, I'll get back to that in a minute. This happens a lot of times. A group of people who are disenfranchised, they'll take the negative language which was used to describe them and they'll make it their own. They'll make it their own. There's a phenomenon in the West. There's something called slut marches. Men sometimes rape women and then just end up like absolute insanity. They blame the women. It's very, very common in old world cultures where if a woman walks around naked or poorly dressed and she gets raped, then they'll blame the woman. Like, she walked around naked. What do you expect? What do you expect? Expect for men to be human beings. 1,000 women could walk around naked. I'm not going to rape any of them. What kind of monster are you? Is it like if a woman takes off her clothes, you're going to rape her? And so women, taking back their power, they do these slut walks or slut marches. I can't really exactly remember what they're called. But women will march and they'll dress provocatively to protest the rape of a woman who was blamed for her rape. So they took back that term slut. They said, okay, you want to call me a slut? I'll be a slut, but I'm putting in your face that you're a monster. You follow? The N word. We're not allowed to say that word anymore, but there's a word that starts with the letter N, a negative word to refer to black people in the U.S. And so the black community uses that word for themselves. They took it back from us. I say us. I mean, I don't use that term, but my skin's white, so I guess I'm lumped in. And so they took back that term, and now they use that term to refer to themselves. Today I thought BYOB, bring your own Bhagavatam, because I brought my own book to give class. If you're from the U.S., you know BYOB means bring your own bottle. It refers to a situation where they're not going to serve alcohol, but if you bring your own bottle of alcohol, you can drink your own alcohol. Like, they'll serve food, but BYOB, bring your own bottle of alcohol and you can drink. So I thought BYOB, bring your own Bhagavatam. I brought my own Bhagavatam today. Sometimes you take a negative thing, you make it positive. So we took this term dasyu. Dasyu means slave, low person. Like a low person. It's in all the Artha Shastras, in all the Dharma Shastras, dasyu means like indentured servant or slave. Dasi is even worse. The feminine, it's like a concubine, like a servant that the master of the house would also have conjugal relations with. That's very clear in the Artha Shastras and the Dharma Shastras. So we took that term and we said, yeah, I'll be a slave, I'll be a servant to God. And then we get names like Radha Raman Das, like Govinda Das. We take that name and we make it our own. And what was a negative term becomes a positive term. And so the Dasyus originally were these bad people, and the word Dasyu, Dasyun, the thieves and rogues, but we all have that name Das attached to our names. You have the name you're named after, your namesake, and then Das or Dasi follows it. We took back that term, we made it beautiful. Vrindavan Das, Krishna Das. Braj Kishore Das, Radharani Dasi. And these terms become beautiful. Anyway, Dasyun Hanyat Swarat Vapu, in the form of the king, he's killing the Dasyus. And then Kala Rupena Sarvesham Abhavaya, in the form of time, he's destroying everything. And this gets a little, he destroys Pritak Guna, Sarvesham, of everything which is manifested separately, of everything which has kind of like evolved separately. So the world was created from one source. We are monists. A lot of times we think monism refers to impersonalism, but it doesn't. Monism refers to a belief that everything comes from one source. Monism is contrasted to dualism, which believes there's ultimately two things. We don't believe in God and the devil. We believe that everything ultimately comes from Krishna. We don't believe in matter and spirit even. Where does matter come from? It comes from spirit. Therefore, we're Vedantins. Vedanta starts with a Tata Brahma Jigyasa. And what you inquire about Brahman, and what is Brahman? Jamadi Yasya Yataha. It's that thing from which everything else comes. There's one source of everything. Matter and spirit come from one source. So, things manifest differently, but ultimately they come from one source. And in the form of time, Krishna brings things back to the one thing that they were in the beginning. And Krishna says this, Kalo asmi lokakshay krit pravridham. Time I am the great destroyer of the world. When the first nuclear bomb exploded, Oppenheimer, who was a Sanskrit pundit, the Germans liked Sanskrit from the time of Max Mueller. So many Indologists were German. He did a translation of the Gita, and Max Mueller says, it's on TV, you can look at it on YouTube. He says when the first nuclear bomb exploded at the Trinity test site, I quoted that verse in the Gita in Sanskrit. The first nuclear bomb in the world exploded, the hydrogen bomb, wasn't nuclear yet. The first hydrogen bomb exploded, and Oppenheimer, the father of that hydrogen bomb, said, Kalo asmi lokakshay krit pravridham. Time I am the great destroyer of the world. Yeah. So, in the form of time, in the form of entropy, everything is brought back to its homogenized state. Krishna returns everything, conserves everything within himself. Just so you can think about the meditation. The Lord breathes out and the universes come out of his pores. And he breathes in and everything is conserved back within him. What differentiates us from the Kevala Dvaitins, the people who believe that everything is God, is that we believe that within that Supreme Lord, there are Shaktis, various energies. And therefore within Krishna, he has various Shaktis. He has various energies. He has various powers. We are one of those powers. The world is one of those powers. In this way, everything is Krishna, but everything is a part of Krishna, a small part of Krishna, and everything is Maite. Everything is within me. Nat teshvaham. I'm not in everything. I'm beyond everything. Everything is within Krishna, and Krishna is also beyond everything. And in this way, we avoid becoming pure monists, Kevala Dvaitins, who believe that everything is one with Krishna, because we believe that within Krishna, there are different Shaktis. And that's why our philosophy is called Shakti Parinamavad. Anyway, in the form of time, he conserves everything. And now we get to today's verse. People in general are bewildered by the illusory energy. And therefore they try to find the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through various types of research and philosophical speculation. Nonetheless, they're unable to see the Supreme Lord. People in general are bewildered by the illusory energy. And therefore they try to find the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through various types of research and philosophical speculation. Nonetheless, they're unable to see the Supreme Lord. So, by the way, just Prabhupada, he puts a little purport in the last verse. There's no purport, but there is. There's really two things that happen in the Bhagavatam. There's Sanskrit verses, and then there's Prabhupada's commentary on those verses. And when you look at the translation may be Prabhupada's commentary, it may be a straight translation. You have to look. We can look at the last verse. Forgive me for jumping back, but it came to me to jump back. In the form of the Prajapati, the Supreme Personality of creation, Prajesha Rupena Sarga. With the form of the Prajeshas, Sarga, creation. Becoming the king, he kills the thieves and rogues. All right. Swarat Vapu, in the form of the king, Hanyat Dasyun, he kills the Dasyus. No problem. In the form of time, he annihilates everything. Kalena, Rupena, Sarvesham, Abhavaya. Okay. All the different qualities of material existence should be understood to be qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's not in the Sanskrit. That's not there. But that point is our philosophy. I made this point. We're Vedantins. We believe that everything ultimately comes from Krishna. And therefore, Krishna, when he destroys everything, is ultimately conserving everything because everything originally comes from him and everything returns to him. How does he do that? Through entropy, through time. And so you can see here this same point I was making about Vedanta in Prabhupada's translation. That's where I got it from. When you look at the verses, you look at Prabhupada's translation, he's either doing a straight translation or he's telling you how he reads the verse, how our acharyas read the verse. Sometimes if he thinks a point is important enough, he'll include it in his translation. And so we find that although there is no purport, there is actually a purport. The last sentence is a purport. And now today's verse. Stuhyamana janai. Stuhyamana means being extolled or being glorified. From stu, where you get the word stuti from, or prayers from. Stuhyamana, janai, by the people. Abhi, by these people. They're glorifying him. They're glorifying who? It's not mentioned in the verse, but we have to go back to verse 8. Harina, by Hari, who's appeared in all these different forms. They're glorifying him. But those people are vimohitatma. They're bewildered people. And so, nana darshanai, by their various philosophies, by their various darshans. The word darshan is another fascinating word in Sanskrit. Darshan refers to a philosophical system. It also refers, darshan comes from drish, it means to see. So darshana, by their darshans, na drishyate, he can't be seen. He can't be seen by their darshans. The same word is used. By their darshan, na drishyate, same drish. Indian TV is called Doordarshan. You see something far away. Dur means far away. Darshan, you have the vision of something far away. That's TV in India, because you can see. Did you ever think of that? Darshan refers to a philosophical system. But my guru made the brilliant point that when we go to see the deities, we also talk about darshan. And we have, of course, Drishi Drishta Tattva, Drishi Drishya Tattva. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, whose appearance day was yesterday. He's the tattva of who is the seer. Drishti Drashta Tattva. Who is the seer and who is the seen? Drashta means seer. Drishti means seen. Who is the seer and who is the seen? The story is he came to the temple one time and his vision was not thought to be so good. He was standing in the back of the temple and his pujari came forward and said, Guru Maharaj, please come forward. He said, I haven't come to come have a nice darshan. I haven't come to see the deity. I've come to be seen by the deity. Drishti Drashta Tattva. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said his whole philosophy could be summed up as who is the seer and who is the seen. When we come in front of the deity to take darshan, we're coming to be seen by the Lord. He is the seer, we are the seen. We're not coming to have a nice look at Krishna. We're coming so Krishna can have a nice look at us. That's why we come. We come to take darshan. Really, we come so the Lord can take darshan of us and inspect us and give us our orders. The same way He's giving orders to the manus. Our orders come to us through the gurus. Our orders come to us through our tradition, through our lineage, through our shastras. But it's ultimately those orders are from Krishna. We're ruled by Shastra, but that's ultimately Purusha Shastra. That's the rule of Krishna, just as I explained before. Those books are ultimately the Lord's rule coming down to us. The words of our gurus are ultimately the Lord's words coming down to us through a chain. And so we come to be seen. Anyway, my Shiksha Guru, he told me one time that this word darshan refers to a philosophical system, nana, darshan, but it also refers to seeing the Lord, because by that philosophical system, you will be able to see the Lord. By getting a proper darshan, a proper system, our darshan, a bona fide darshan, magic will happen and you'll be able to see Krishna. Although we shouldn't be thinking like that. By the time you see Krishna, you know that your only purpose of coming here is to be seen by Krishna. So these vimohitatmas, with their various darshans, they're not able to see. Mayaya, nama rupaya, because they're influenced by Maya, And they're in a world of names and forms. Nama Rupa. They're in this world of names and forms. They don't get it. What don't they get? All these magical ways in which the Lord is appearing before us. We live in this world, we think that we're surrounded by a bunch of people, and they're all doing things to us. It's not what's happening. Krishna is reaching out to us and touching us. He's teaching us lessons. We don't want to learn them. They keep coming. We want to blame the people who come to teach them to us. We have to stop that. We have to see that behind all of it, it's Krishna's rule. Krishna's the one doing it. Krishna's reaching out to us. Our enemies aren't our enemies, they're our friends. Everybody's our friend because everybody's representing Krishna, and there's so many lessons to learn, and Krishna keeps teaching us. Not so much that our free will is compromised, but enough so that he's unlimitedly benevolent and merciful. And this is what's happening with these manus. They're inspired by the Lord. They're ruled by the Lord. They're instructed by the Lord. And the Lord is coming to us through them, and he's ruling the world through them. He's establishing Dharma through them. He's teaching us through them. He's reaching out to us through them. And in this way, everything is coming from Krishna. And so Prabhupada, in his brief purport, whatever actions and reactions take place for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material world, they're actually brought about by the one Supreme Person. Prabhupada is making this point. The point I've labored to make throughout the class. Now we're reading Prabhupada's purport. Of course, I got my point from him. He's making this point. Whatever actions and reactions take place for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material world, they're actually brought about by the one Supreme Person. The import of that is very, very heavy. You have to stop blaming people for what happens to you. There are many varieties of philosophers trying to search for the ultimate cause under different names and forms, but they're unable to find the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're unable to figure it out. They're bewildered. So many philosophies. So many of us are bewildered. So many times I can't see how Krishna's reaching out to me. So many times I try to figure it out, I can't understand it. What to speak of them? It's us. How many times can't we see Krishna? How many times can't we see Krishna's hand? They're unable to find the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who explains in Bhagavad-Gita that he's the origin of everything and the cause of all causes. Aham sarvasya prabhava. The full statement Krishna makes is Aham sarvasya prabhava mata sarvam pravartate. I'm the source of all, and everything proceeds from me. He's making a kind of a complicated point. He's saying he's the nimitta and upadan karan of the creation. Sankhya has this nimitta and upadan karan, the energetic and the material cause of creation. They believe in two things. They believe in prakriti and purusha. They believe in spirit and matter. We don't believe in spirit and matter. We believe everything comes from one source because we're Vedantins. And so Krishna takes both positions, himself and Gita. Prabhupada quotes that here. It's a very appropriate verse to quote. I've got a couple minutes left, so I'm just going to go back to that verse from Gita that Prabhupada references here very quickly. And I'm just going to make one point. He says here, Lord Krishna is the source of all generations, and he's... I messed it up. It disappeared from my phone. It's the benefit of having a book is you don't accidentally press the wrong button and ruin your whole thing. And I have to scroll back and find it. Krishna is the source of all generations, and he's also the most efficient cause of everything. Everything is born from me. I'm the original source of everything. Everything is under me. Prabhupada is making this point. The point I just made, he's making in his purport here. That there is no Purusha and Prakriti. There's only Purusha. Prakriti comes from Purusha, part of Purusha. And so this point is also made. He unmanifests everything. He conserves everything. It's all ultimately coming from Krishna. Maite, they are in me. Natte shvaham, I am not in them. I am beyond them. Everything is within Krishna. Krishna is still beyond everything. But through bhakti, ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya, if you worship Krishna with bhakti, then te mai api te shoham. Then you're in Krishna, and he also is in you. This is the magic of bhakti. That the structure of the universe is changed through bhakti. And Krishna also becomes actively involved in our lives. And the unlimited Supreme Lord, who cannot be seen by anything, can be experienced. This inability is due to the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord, the inability by which we cannot see him. Devotees therefore accept the Supreme Personality of God as he is, and remain happy simply by chanting the glories of the Lord. Can I finish? I just have like 1, 2 things more to say. Are you sure? I'll just be one. I just want to honor the sentence. I'll be real quick. I'm like a minute over. This inability is due to the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. Devotees therefore accept it. Actually, the inability to see Krishna is not due to his illusory energy. It's due to our misuse of our free will, which then puts us under his illusory energy. It's our fault. It's not Krishna's fault. Therefore, devotees therefore accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is. They understand that everything's coming from Krishna. They don't get bewildered. They can see the hand of God in everything. And they remain happy simply by chanting the glories of the Lord. And I read this 2 ways. Devotees have cracked the code. They can see Krishna everywhere, in everything, and therefore they're happy. They chant Krishna's glories, and they're happy. The other one is this. Devotees may not be able to understand everything, but they can at least understand that everything is coming from Krishna. And they are satisfied in that. We're very small. We're tiny. But we can at least understand this point. And we can be satisfied in this, and we can be peaceful in this. Either we've understood everything, because we've understood the source of everything, and we can just be happy chanting. Otherwise, we've understood enough that we can navigate this material world, make our way through it, go back to Godhead, and we can be satisfied, even without understanding every detail. You can read the verse either way. You can read the purport either way. And then the last verse, Eta kalpak vikalpasya pramana parikirti tam yacha manvantarani ahus chaturdasa paravidha. In one kalpa day Brahma, there take place many changes called vikalpas. O king, all of them have been previously described to you by me. Learned scholars who know past, present, and future have ascertained that in one day of Brahma there are 14 manus. Om Tat Sat, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. We're out of time, otherwise I'd ask for questions. We should end, right? Yes. Yes, we should end, right? Yes. We can take one question. The Mahant of our temple is here. Panchagoda Prabhu, temple president. He said we can take one question. Is there one question or comment? Comment, Marsh? Yes, Marsh.
Why does Krishna appear as different sages and yogis and things like that? I mean, he can do everything himself. He can appear Krishna and disseminate this knowledge. He can give this knowledge of the Vedas himself. But he appears as different, incarnates Sanatana, the Drea, this one, that one, to give Vedic knowledge to humanity. Is there some special significance? The Lord comes in these different forms, empowers the manus. I mean, he himself can do it and enlighten everyone. So, but he actually empowers living. Are they living entities, or are they actually?
Some of them are living entities. No, some of them are living entities.
Maybe partial incarnations and this and that. I mean, it seems kind of
sure
difficult. So,
yeah. Normally I wouldn't answer a question by such an illustrious Vaishnava as yourself, but I am in the big seat today, and you're the TP, and we're over time, but there is no overtime because you're holding the mic. I'm going to answer your question. You've asked actually several questions in one, so I'm going to answer all of them quickly.
Confuse people regularly.
I don't feel confused at all. I feel inspired. says prachodita, that they're inspired by the Lord, they're instructed by the Lord. I'm inspired by your question. Number one, some of our avatars are Shakti Avesh, and so they're living entities empowered by the Lord, and so they're a jiva, and they're given they're empowered by Krishna so much that they move like the hand of God. And we see that they are so powerfully manifesting Krishna's mercy that we see that in that empowerment, the Lord moving. Just like in our experience, we hear our guru speak, and sometimes we have this experience, Krishna's speaking to me. That was Krishna. He spoke to me. Your guru was there, but Krishna was speaking to you. When that happens substantially enough with a living entity, powerfully enough, where they make moves, massive moves, then we call them a Shakti Avesh avatar, and we start to see the divinity within them more prominently. And we become inspired. So some of the people mentioned there, Samrat, the king is mentioned. Certainly a living entity. But the Chatushana, they're not Krishna. They're living entities inspired by Krishna, the four Kumars. Dattatreya is not Krishna. He's a jiva inspired by Krishna. Sometimes with Rishabh Dev, he'll be described both. Jiva Goswami says sometimes he's described as being Krishna, sometimes he's described as being a living entity. So sometimes you'll get that kind of stuff. We'll save that for another day. But why are living entities sometimes described as being avatars? Why like that kind of partial thing? The partial things means they're not a full manifestation of Krishna. So like we have Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're not avatar, they're avatari. They are the source of all avatars. They are the Swayam Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord Himself. Then you have their partial incarnations. It is Vishnu, but it's lacking some of the beauty and some of the sweetness that you'll only find in Krishna and Vrindavan. When Krishna leaves Vrindavan, he gets 4 arms. Only 2-armed form of Krishna. Too intimate. In mature, there's a little too much formality. It's a different Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said you got to write 2 plays to Rupa Goswami. This Krishna in Vrindavan, he's different than the Yadu Kumar Krishna. Because that Yadu Kumar Krishna is derivative, not all the sweetness. 4 things are missing according to Rupa Goswami. He's missing Madhurya, Prema Madhurya, Lila Madhurya, Venu Madhurya, and Rupa Madhurya. Krishna's form is more beautiful than Vishnu's form. His devotees have a sweet love that nobody outside of Vrindavan has. His flute playing is not powerful, it's just sweet. And his form is sweet, his lila is sweet, his devotees are sweet. And his flute playing is sweet. Yeah. So that's what we mean when we say partial incarnation. They're lacking something. Then the living entities are even more partial. That's why we talk about partial incarnation. That's what's being communicated. Prabhupada's making this point, Supreme Personality, not just the personality of God, Supreme Personality of God, the original, the one without a second. And who for us is that? That's Krishna in Vrindavan with 2 hands, playing a flute, intimately available, sucking his mother's breast, being bound around the waist. The greatest personality becoming simple and available that you can dance with. That's the first question you had. It was the last point you made, but it was the first thing that came to my mind. The second point you made is that why does the Lord do this? Because he's sweet and he likes to glorify his devotees. Prabhupada said, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left something for us. My guru left something for me. We'll never say the Lord couldn't do it. He could just think it would be done. But he wants to give us some service, and so he leaves it for us. Prabhupada made that point. That's his own answer to the same question. That same question was asked by Prabhupada's disciples, and he said he left something for us. My guru left something for me. The Lord left something for me to do. And so there's something for all of us to do. The Lord's so kind, he leaves us with something to do, and that something to do purifies us and brings us closer to him. The Lord is fancy. He wears different kinds of outfits as well. Sometimes he dresses in like a multi-garmented outfit. Sometimes he wears just a yellow dhoti. He has a sense of humor. He manifests that he has to pick up the earth. He manifests as a boar to pick something dirty up. He's got a great sense of humor. He's got panache. And he also loves us so much that he leaves something for us to do. And he reaches down to us through his great devotees, which of course is why he says, Kaunteya pratijani namai bhakti. He tells his devotees to say it. We always make this point also. He doesn't say it himself. He tells devotees to say it because they'll always keep their promise. Just like you get Bhishma's promise. And so this is the Lord. He's so sweet. He leaves something for us. He empowers the devotees. He lets them be glorified. Not just he's glorified. The devotees are glorified. He's Yashoda Dulal. He's Nanda Nandana. The names of his parents come first. You know? He's Gopi Jana Vallabha. His name's always second. He's Radha Raman. The names of his devotees come first. His name comes second. He's derivative. Because that's the magic. That the origin of all, the ultimate Swarat, becomes relativized and dependent on his devotees. That's the miracle of Krishna Bhakti. That's the miracle of Vrindavan. And we'll finish with that. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Radha Shyam Sundar ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.